Oh yeah. Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope was released in 1977 and was directed by George Lucas. Just in case you are one of the few people who live under a rock and haven't seen this movie, this is a spoiler review, so you've been warned.
And go back and watch it, you scrub!
Let me start off by saying I have vivid memories of the first time that I saw Star Wars. When I was a kid, I was 8 years old, and it forever changed my world.
Oh, for sure.
I fell in love with this fantasy world that George created. There was so much adventure to be had, so many worlds to discover. Before we even meet the main character, like 15, 20 minutes into the movie, there's so much world building set up. Like, there's multiple planets that are mentioned. The state of the galaxy is displayed for us to see. The Empire is attacking the rebellion. Like, out of any fantasy movie I've seen, it probably has the best world building.
Oh, for sure.
In any movie.
Oh, yeah.
A battle takes place at the very beginning. That kind of technology that they have is displayed for us to see. And Darth Vader, the greatest movie villain of all time.
Oh, for sure. And one of the greatest villain intros, I mean.
And one of the greatest villain intros of all time is displayed within the first, I think, probably 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
We're just thrust into this world. And it works so well. A lot of the times when movies just thrust you in like that, it's very jarring to the viewer. And this, you're like, oh, this is what that is? And I don't know, you just kind of discover what it is, and you want to learn more, but you don't feel confused either.
Yeah.
It's a fine line they had to walk, but they did it well.
Did well, for sure.
This has been said a billion times, so I'm not going to go super into it, but this movie was extremely groundbreaking for the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it broke so many records and everyone was seeing it, because there's nothing close to this when it came out.
Right. Like, things we modern moviegoers think of as normal in a movie, that it just wasn't even heard of in a movie back then. Like, they were kind of thrown off that Earth wasn't even mentioned in the movie. I was just talking to somebody the other day. They said they saw it back in 1977 when it came out. And they were like, what? Earth isn't even in the movie? It takes place all in another galaxy? And to us, that's just like, okay.
Yeah.
But back then, there hadn't really been a movie like that. The droids were given very human-like personalities. And the special effects, of course, are just ridiculous.
Amazing, dude. Especially, again, like we've said, we'll probably say it more, given the time, the things he was able to do with all this
before
was crazy.
CGI.
I know. And he didn't have, like, a Marvel-type budget either. It's not like he had, like, $200 million for this movie. He had, like, a reasonable amount.
He didn't. He actually had $11 million to make this movie, which in today's world translates into about $45 million. I did the research before the video.
That's awesome.
And normally a blockbuster of that kind of stature today, it's about $200 million or so. So he had to work with sort of a small budget.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I mean, he did so well with it. He had to heavily rely on a lot of miniatures for that, which totally worked.
Oh, yeah.
Like the shot when the Millennium Falcon is being pulled into the Death Star. You can totally see the scope of the Death Star and where the Millennium Falcon is going in. And then it zooms into another miniature, and you can see how large the Death Star is and how tiny the Millennium Falcon is in this little portion of the Death Star.
Gives you a huge, great context of the whole Death Star. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah. So, Hunter, let's talk about the characters.
Of course.
We've got Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, Chewbacca, R2-D2, C-3PO, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who didn't know at least one of these characters. Like, you'd have to look under a rock.
Oh, yeah.
And they form such a dynamic group. It's so fun to just, like, watch them interact together in this crazy new world.
Yeah.
And just have that experience with them.
And they all have,
it's hilarious.
They all have their own dynamic to add to the group that all kind of meshes it all together.
Yes. Yes, their characters are set up so well beforehand that it is just so fun to watch their personalities mesh like that. Like, you've got Luke, just the boy who's not experienced much. He's just a farmhand. You've got Princess Leia, who's, of course, a princess. Han Solo, who's just a dirty smuggler, and his sidekick Chewbacca. And then the droids, and their different personalities. C-3PO is very nervous about everything. R2-D2's sarcastic. And then, of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Jedi, who is so fascinating to a first-time viewer. Like, being able to use the Force and that whole concept.
Yeah.
Just so cool. I mean, to an 8-year-old boy, that is the coolest thing
Oh
ever.
yeah, for sure. And the whole concept of the lightsabers is just game changing.
Oh,
like
totally. Man.
wow.
Yes. And I love the sound effects of the lightsabers.
Oh, yeah,
the sound
for
effects in general in this movie were also pretty groundbreaking for
Oh,
the
yeah,
time.
exactly.
But especially that lightsaber, when that gets turned on, I love it.
One thing I was really impressed with was Mark Hamill's acting. I mean, this was one of his first movies ever. He's thrown into this huge universe that George Lucas has created, and he did such a great job. He was able to carry this movie to greater heights, and it was awesome to watch.
Mm-hmm. And Alec Guinness as well, who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Mm-hmm.
He does an amazing job. Makes you, I don't really feel emotions throughout the movie. And having seen the prequels, obviously now, and watching him fight Darth Vader, it's not the best lightsaber duel ever.
Yeah.
But you can still feel emotions in there.
Exactly. Especially seeing the prequels, him understanding that he needed to not fight Vader and set an example for Luke so he can go further in his path with the Force. I mean, it was all important for the movie.
Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of comedy moments throughout as well.
Yeah.
And the whole movie, it has so much movement throughout. It's a constant movement, constant adventure throughout. And for being over 40 years old, that's pretty impressive to have that fast of a pace.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's nonstop.
Yeah, there's no dull moments, like, ever. It's awesome. Even, like, when, Darth Vader's talking with his Imperial officers and stuff. I mean, that's essential for the movie. I mean, the whole Death Star was the whole plot of the movie. And so it was, important for them to show that. And, I wasn't bored during it because it was only, like, 2 or 3 minutes. And
you're not bored with it, even though it's just a dialogue scene. Because you're learning about the galaxy that they're in. The set design, too, was crazy. I mean, just even, like, sort of small things, like in the beginning when C-3PO is walking on Tatooine, and you see, and he and R2 have already split up, and you see the remains of a skeleton of some kind of dragon beast or something.
Yeah.
Small things like that just really help set up this entire universe.
And that's something George Lucas does good with, like, with having a smaller budget. Those small things can still help progress the whole, scope of the universe, because it's, what is that kind of animal and kind of thing. So it's really cool.
It just helps create that sense of wonder, that sense of wanting to discover more about this whole universe that they're living in.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the Force is, too, when Obi-Wan introduces that. You just want to learn more. You want to see Luke progress in his training.
Because in the movie, you don't see a lot of the Force as compared to, like, the prequels and stuff.
True.
But still, you're wanting to learn more and see exactly what is this Force. He kind of leaves it kind of open exactly what it is. So that's kind of cool, just making you want to go to the next movie like they did in 1977. So that's really cool.
Yeah, like Obi-Wan talking to Luke through the Force at the end of the movie to shut down the Death Star. I love that arc that they had. Obi-Wan training Luke and saying, you need to not rely on your own self, put the blast shield on, search with your feelings, and let the Force guide you. And then he does that at the very end. He trusts Obi-Wan. And it's just cool to see different ways that the Force can be used. And you're right, it's very open-ended. Another thing they did great about setting up the world was setting up a history for the world that took place before this movie began. Obi-Wan talking about how the Jedi Order used to be large, and then Darth Vader helped destroy the Jedi and slaughtered them, as well as killed Luke's father. It's so entertaining to just watch these characters enter the Death Star, rescue Princess Leia, escape the Death Star, fight off some stormtroopers, watch Obi-Wan battle Darth Vader, see the rebels victorious against the Empire at the end of the movie, and watch Han come back flying in like a hero, saving the day, making sure Luke can destroy the Death Star. It's just so awesome.
Well.
Yes. So, dude, we haven't even talked about the music yet. This is possibly the most iconic movie score of all time. Deservedly so.
Oh, for sure.
It's so sweeping and epic and fitting for every scene.
Exactly.
And iconic. You instantly know that that's Star Wars music when you hear it.
Oh, yeah. Even today, 40 years later, you can
hum along to it. So basically, this entire movie is just one giant thrill ride of fun, adventure, laughs, crazy galaxy to explore. Sets it up for a sequel. I only have one con to this movie, and that's that Chewbacca did not get a medal at the end. Like, why doesn't he get a medal? I don't understand. He did. He was with Han the whole time in the Millennium Falcon. He helped save the day.
Without Chewbacca, they wouldn't have saved the day.
Chewbacca even went up there and stood with him. I don't get it.
I mean, I'm fine with that being the only con. I mean, it's a great movie.
Yeah, and it's a classic. It's an all-time classic. I would easily put this in my top 10 movies of all time.
Oh,
Easily.
top 5.
I mean, it's probably number 2 for me. So yeah, I mean, it's one of the greatest movies of all time. I'm easily getting it a 10 out of 10. Not even a question.
For sure. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for checking out our review. We're going to review Empire Strikes Back in a couple weeks from now. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you for our next review.